Good morning. This might be a bit noisy. If it is too noisy, I will end. I wanted to jump on a quick live stream. Oldham, if you haven't seen Tommy's video yesterday from Oldham, you probably should. Can anyone hear me? Is anybody there? Yeah, I've got some thumbs up. I presume that means you can hear me. Now, Oldham, okay. We've had something happen 2 days ago, day before yesterday in Oldham. Tommy went there to give a speech like he's given dozens of so far. And this is the breakdown in British policing. But it's not a breakdown. We now have the evidence of things that I've known have gone on for years, which is the police in Oldham actually took Muslims to attack Tommy. They escorted them there. They had days of intelligence of planning online what they were going to do. And when the Muslim Defense League came and gathered, the police escorted them to exactly where Tommy Robinson and people who just wanted to hear his message. To even call them supporters is wrong. We don't, it was a political rally. You go to political rallies to hear the political ideas of a person. It's not always a show of support. So the other thing that's going on now is that the media has taken this concerted viewpoint that they don't want to cover Tommy Robinson. They will cover negative aspects of him. So they will try and only cover negative aspects. But that means that they don't send reporters to any of these events. They don't send cameramen. They don't send video cameras. They don't send anything. So they've got nothing except what the Muslim Defense League puts online, or Antifa protesters put online, or what Tommy and his supporters and people who are just coming to his rallies. The media haven't got anything else to work on. Same with the police. I want to read through. I was hoping I could share screens with this new Google interface, but it is really annoying. Anyway, I'm going to just read. This is the very first statement coming from Twitter that the Greater Manchester Police, which they put out on May 18th at 8:27. So in 8:27 in the evening, the Greater Manchester Police said, today, during a planned event in Oldham, officers responded accordingly to a disturbance in the Limeside area. A number of objects were thrown. By whom? You knew at that point, but you won't say. And some damage has been caused to 2 police vehicles. By whom? You knew the police knew who was doing the damage, but they won't report that. But there have not been reported injuries. We are aware of a number of videos that are circulating. Oh, yes, you are, I'm sure, online showing the disturbance, but this has now been brought to a close. Officers will remain in the area for some time. So that obviously got mocked mercilessly. So let's see the timestamp. Yeah, 8:27 p.m. So what's the time? Yeah, oh, sorry. The first one was at that was at 8:27 p.m. on May 18th. May 19th at 12:36 a.m. So in the middle of the night, basically, they come out with a longer statement. Chief Superintendent Neil Evans, Territorial Commander for Oldham, said, everyone has the right to free speech, and we will always do our best to facilitate this so people can exercise this right in a safe environment. This evening, people took advantage of this and turned to violence, throwing objects, including eggs, bricks. We understand that many of those involved were not from Oldham. People in this sentence is Muslim gangs, the Muslim Defense League, who organized their attack on social media, on Facebook, on sites from which Tommy and me and many of his supporters are banned, and which are in public and which the police could be monitoring, but it would appear that they either are not monitoring or they are not prepared to take action against those who plan acts of violence on social media. It gets worse, though, because we know this because of the video that Tommy put out yesterday. The police go on, whoever is responsible, this behavior will not be tolerated by GMP, our partners, or the people of Oldham. Well, we watched the video yesterday. This behavior was tolerated. The police were standing right next to Muslims hurling eggs and later rocks. We watched as your police officers stood next to them. None of them drew a baton. None of them made an arrest. None of them took out flexi cuffs. None of them did any of the things that police are supposed to do when they see actual acts of violence and attempted murder in the case of throwing a rock. The police did nothing. Now, compare and contrast that. Think back to the Cambridge event with Tommy Robinson being thrown out of a pub because with his kids, because there might be a disturbance later. That was the entire case of the police. They thought there might be a disturbance, and that gave them the power to take one man, a couple of his friends, and 4 or 5 kids out of a city because there might be a disturbance. But what we saw yesterday when Tommy released his video, clearly, because we got this from the Muslim Defense League's own uploads because they're so arrogant, what we saw was that the police led the Muslims close to Tommy. They led them by the nose instead of telling them to pack up and go out of town the way that they'd thrown Tommy out of Cambridge. So I'll carry on with, I'm still reading. This is the second police statement, which was May 19th in the middle of the night. Okay. Police officers responded quickly to the disorder and dispersed those involved. Well, you wouldn't have had to have dispersed anybody if you hadn't brought them there. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt and damage was only caused to vehicles. Yeah, this is a win for you guys. So the level that we're expecting now from the British police is that you stopped anybody dying and you stopped anybody suffering serious injury, but that your own police vehicles getting smashed up by gangs of Muslims in Britain is fine. You're heading towards the French model of barbecues, by the way. You will start seeing that. Now, the incident has come to a close and people in the area have dispersed. Our attention turns to the investigation into the circumstances that surround it. Yes, you led them there. Those involved can expect to be arrested. By the way, we're still at the point where the police statement makes absolutely no distinction between Tommy, people who came to hear Tommy supporters, the good people of Oldham who just wanted to hear what he has to say, including women and children, makes no distinction between them and the Muslim Defense League, who organized online on Facebook and laid out their intentions quite clearly. Come throw milkshakes or anything else, they said. Those involved can expect to be arrested and dealt with robustly. We have not yet been informed of any arrests, by the way. We're waiting. There are a number of videos circulating on social media, so we know that people have information that could be useful to us, and I'd encourage those who have to get in contact with us. By the way, the police were probably all wearing body cams. You have all of that footage, police. You have the footage of your officers leading gangs of Muslim men who are screaming Allahu Akbar, which is the attack battle cry of jihad. You have that footage because we have that footage because we got it from the live streams of the arrogant Muslim Defense League. And you're going to have much more of this footage yourself, Mr. GM, please, because we know that you're all mic'd up and you're all wearing cameras. Patrols will remain in the area for some time for reassurance and to deal with any further concerns. We're working closely with our partners and community. Cohesion in Oldham is not damaged by today's event. Again, you're trying to make out like a politician trying to have a rally is what breaks down cohesion rather than a mass mob of Muslim men coming to fight is what's breaking down cohesion. The point is, you can police Tommy. You can throw him out of Cambridge. You can smash anything he's trying to do. You can restrict his access to places. You can do all of that because you feel you have the right, but you are terrified of standing up. You are dhimmi police, and you will not stand up to mobs of Muslims. Okay, so I'm going to move on to what is now the latest statement issued 19 hours ago. Let's just check the timestamp on this. Sorry, I can't show you my screen. Oh, wait, no, that was 19 hours ago. Now 13 hours ago. So at 7:29 p.m. yesterday. So this is, I think this either came out this came out just after Tommy released his video. So we know you're watching Tommy's videos and you're probably having kittens. Good. Police Superintendent, I think we gone up in rank now. Danny Ingalls of GMP's Oldham district said, while we work through the evidence that's available to us from the disturbance last night, it's important that we keep you informed. Yeah, because, and some of that is clearing up any rumors. Okay, so basically you're playing catch up. The media are not there to help you in this instance because they sent nobody to cover Tommy events, because they think that taking him off social media, scrubbing his YouTube channel and making it hard to find, they think all of these things will make him go away. And you've also realized, much as, to make the comparison with Trump got elected because the media obsessively cover him. And you're thinking, maybe if you don't obsessively cover Tommy, and you just mention when he has a milkshake thrown over him, maybe he won't win and maybe he'll just go away. Well, it's failing. And because you didn't have people, the media, on the ground, you can't counter Tommy's message. Plus, his video yesterday, 19 minutes of storytelling and explanatory video par excellence, the cut, the length, everything about it, the whole nature of it. So there have been a lot of messages and questions, both in the community and on social media, about why we allowed the event itself to take place. It's really important to understand that people have the opportunity to exercise their right to protest and to counter-protest. Okay, what he's saying, I don't know who was protesting. Tommy was holding a political rally. A political rally is absolutely the most fundamental part of democracy. If you cannot hold political rallies during an election, your democracy is worthless. Voting is the last and least important part of democracy. It doesn't, without all the stuff that comes before, which is free speech and free assembly, without those things, the voting doesn't matter, because you'll just vote for whoever the powers that be tell you to. You will become like the Soviet Union or the elections in North Korea. That's what you will become unless Tommy is allowed to go to Oldham and have a rally. Now, the next part, though, is, in their sentence, the opportunity to exercise their right to protest and to counter-protest. Okay, a counter-protest is more like what we saw in Liverpool last night. That's standing there with some placards. If you want to scream Nazis off our street because you're stupid, scream Nazis off our street. That's a counter-protest. Showing up with balaclavas and eggs and picking up rocks and hurling them, that is not a counter-protest. That is a violent attack or a riot. The police have absolutely no responsibility to facilitate a riot. That's what they did in Oldham. They brought the rioters to where they could riot. This is in line with it, back to the statement. This is in line with everyone's right to free speech, and we do not have powers to stop this from happening. Correct. You don't have powers to stop Tommy giving an election rally. You have powers actually outside. And this is what's really interesting. You've stopped Tommy giving speeches before. You stopped the EDL many times by imposing ridiculous impositions on their rights. But within the framework of this European election, the police are really limited. Tommy can say, I want to turn up here and I want to give a speech. And it is the police's responsibility to make that happen. And it is their responsibility to allow a counter-protest if they want to. But counter-protesting does not involve wearing masks and throwing stuff. When we say free speech, however, we certainly do not mean speech or actions that are full of hate. Well, if you've got evidence of Tommy saying anything hateful, bring it forward, my man. Everything was filmed. Everything was put out by Tommy. Hate will never, ever be tolerated. Listen to me carefully, please. Allahu Akbar, when shouted by men wearing masks and carrying weapons, is hate speech, okay? Islam is full of hate speech. The very beginnings of the Quran, chapter 1 of the Quran, surah 1 of the Quran is hate speech. If we were to designate it as such, God, all hell would break loose in Britain, but it is. Allahu Akbar is hate speech. And I watched your police officers leading a crowd of people shouting Allahu Akbar on a video put out. As part of our policing operation last night, officers engaged with a group intent on going to Limeside. Yeah, that's the Muslims. Say it. Why don't you say it? Why is it all groups? Why do we have to read between the lines to infer what you're talking about, please? In line with our duty to minimize disruption to the local area as much as possible, officers walked with the group and sought to reduce any problems on the route they took. You guided them. You knew they were not heading towards a peaceful protest. I knew. I could see it. I could see on their Facebook page. Anybody who looked at that crowd and heard Allahu Akbar knows that they are not going for peaceful protest. If someone gets on a bus in Israel and shouts Allahu Akbar, they get shot, because that's what they say before they blow themselves to pieces in a suicide bombing. So walking along the street during Ramadan, actually, or just after, shouting Allahu Akbar is an act of hate speech and premeditated violence. And your police officers did nothing, because you police Muslims differently from everyone else. It is kuffar versus Muslim. That, and your police officers are engaged in acts of extraordinary dhimmitude. You treat the Muslims differently. This is the entire basis of Islamic supremacy, is to get you to do exactly what you did, Greater Manchester Police. There were also reports of stabbings and gunshots, but I'm glad to say these were false reports. Yeah, you're glad that there were no guns. Understandably, the sound of fireworks. Who let off fireworks? Were Tommy supporters having a big celebratory fireworks session? No, again, it's Muslims. I assure you that those who believe it to be acceptable to throw fireworks can also expect to be investigated by the dedicated team of detectives who will be working on this case. The case you facilitated and created. You should have stopped these people miles from Tommy. You should have said, come back without face coverings, come back with no intent to cause violence. It was clear there was intent to cause violence. Remember, a different police force, but a police force in England threw Tommy and his children out of a city because you feared there might be violence in the future, but you couldn't tell that a gang of Muslim men wearing face coverings shouting Allahu Akbar, you couldn't tell that that might lead to violence in the future. Intelligence suggests, police intelligence, if there was ever an oxymoron, it's this, suggests that some of those traveled a significant distance to Oldham. Yeah, because they were shouting they were from Halifax. I don't know my geography too well, but I know Halifax is not Oldham. Yesterday, and came with their own agendas. Yeah, their agendas were written on Facebook a week before, not to support any protest. We will trace those responsible for the disturbance and use all available powers to do so. Have you shut down the Facebook pages yet? No, I suggest you don't shut down Facebook pages, to be honest. I'd suggest you let everybody organize in Facebook, because then you can see what they're doing. But you should be letting Tommy back on. Now, Tommy's Facebook page, let's go back over that. It was taken down when he had over 1 million followers. We put out Panodrama that had 1 million views in under 24 hours. Tommy's Facebook page was actually the largest and most significant political page on Facebook in the UK. Just let that sink in. We were getting more interactions, more comments, more likes, more shares than Corbyn, than Jeremy Corbyn. And he's way more popular than Theresa May and the Conservatives, that's for sure. And it was shut down, and you know that. Hasn't seemed to have dented actually the reach. We put out videos now. Telegram is helping tremendously. Obviously, I hope people watching this are following Tommy on Telegram. Tommy Robinson News on Telegram. Just look for that. Join the 42,000 or more who are actively following him there. I'm sorry, guys, I'm not reading the comments. They're on another screen. I'm going to just finish this police statement, though. I must be clear that these people are not representative of the people of Oldham. Yeah, so what? Today, local residents have selflessly cleaned their streets and the surrounding areas, which I not only want to thank them for, but think it sends a clear message to those who had no regard for the harm or mess they were causing. You are not welcome. Listen, jihad, Muslim jihad, does not say thank you. It does not thank the local residents of Oldham for clearing up their own streets after they were invaded by a gang of marauding Muslims who were not from that area. But even if they were from a neighboring area, and this is the point that Tommy made in his video, he specifically chose a place in Oldham, an estate that is not close to any estates that are predominantly Muslim. He specifically did that. He knows that there are a lot of Muslims in Oldham. He didn't go near their areas, which is why seeing the police bring the Muslims to Tommy is so important. If this doesn't, this is scarier than the Stephen Lawrence case. Look it up if you don't know anything about Stephen Lawrence. This is scarier than anything I've ever seen from the British police. Now, the way that they treated the EDL back in the day, this sort of thing did happen. But we never got such a clear example where the police, with actual premeditated malice, took violent Muslims towards men, women, and children, exercising a valuable and essential democratic right. I never saw that back in the days of the EDL. I never saw such clear evidence. I'll finish the statement. With our partners, we will stand right there next to you and take a stand against people who think causing this type of chaos is acceptable. And I'd like to thank you for your support as we continue responding to this. What I know I'm reading from the Greater Manchester Police between the lines is that they are blaming or trying to blame Tommy for causing this type of chaos by his very presence. The police are no longer interested in protecting democracy. They're no longer interested in the values of Great Britain, once Great Britain. This police force, Greater Manchester Police Force, it's dedicated to a Dhimmitudinal hostage position where they must keep the Muslims who live in their areas quiet and happy at all times. They must do everything possible to do that. And they've hit a brick wall here with this election campaign because they know that they don't have police rights to stop Tommy from showing up. There's nothing else that can be done here with this kind of policing. I don't think that there's any. I don't see the way forward, actually, unless there is an elected government that takes a look at this police force and says they acted utterly wrong. And that just because people didn't die, like at Hillsborough, just because there were not 50 dead people, doesn't mean that this event isn't actually more serious. You know, it is more serious because it doesn't have the body count, but body count doesn't tell you everything about what matters in a country and a civilization and a society. There were mistakes made at a football match that led to people being crushed to death. It was a horrific tragedy, but it didn't say anything about the breakdown of your civilization. Here, you led an angry mob of Muslims intent on committing acts of violence and jihad and to destroy their opposition, what the people they regard as beneath them, kuffar, the non-Muslims, especially Tommy Robinson, who has spoken honestly about Islam for so long. They want to murder him and they want to murder anybody listening to his message. They want to murder me, but I'm a long way away and I've got the IDF defending me. I'm not being casual when I compare it to Hillsborough, the breakdown in policing. I am not being casual. I understand, and I understand that the fact that Tommy was in Liverpool makes this extra important. What the police did, you, the British people who are listening to me, you have to move heaven and earth to get the political classes in your country either changed or to understand why Dhimmitude, why leading the country into subservience under a Muslim, under the will of the Muslims, is going to result in disaster. And the disaster will come because the British working classes are more numerous still. And when the fights start happening on a major scale, it's going to get very, very ugly. And I'm terrified of that. Tommy is not making that happen. He's keeping a lid on it for now. But once it does start happening, if you suppress Tommy further, you take him out in some way, I think that the lid comes off this and the battle really will begin. All right, I've had spoken enough. I'm Brian of London. I am in Israel. I wanted to share my screen, but I don't know how. Google changed their software, but you got to watch me for, God, how long have I gone on? All right, speak to you soon. Brian of London, brianoflondon.me. Follow me on Telegram, follow Tommy on Telegram. Catch you all soon.